Today we will be looking into the instant grapple of KFM at the start of a boss fight, since a lot of people have been requesting it. This is my skill set for KFM when I play usually, and I start the boss with an instant stun by my bracelet badge, and start with an instant grapple for around 10 seconds CC for my team to usually kill the boss really quickly. So what's important to skill is our tap, which is spec'd on a stun. The other ones are good for damage, but with a grab meter and stun meter at the moment, it's recommended to use this skill and to use your Z. So you want to jump into the boss, if you tap into Z, to immediately stun the boss. That's one of the 3 tactics I'm gonna show you guys today, how to stun the boss. So what's important to do is, you need to practice this a lot in the F12 training mode. On this specific boss, Nacha, you can practice the stunning in. It ignores the aggro range usually, which you might run into difficulties later on, especially at Power Run and other dungeons. Basically you want to jump into the boss, and around the middle height of the boss, according to the boss height, you need to use your tap and then any cancelled into your Z. So if you use it in a too high area, it might not stun him necessarily. If you use it above a boss, he won't get stunned like this. So you need to use it at like a really low area. So for example, when you dash into Power Run, you might need to jump into her and use it right behind her. If you fail the any cancel, it won't work. So you need to practice it a lot to not fail the any cancel. So you jump in, use the any cancel, and then you have this stun bar, and this much time you have to grab. So during the time you still have to grab, I like to proc my bracelet effect and my badge effect, meaning I dash in, use my stun, then use my 4 into 2F, because my F procs my bracelet and my badge. It's a pretty big burst. So I go in, use it at this height, use my X as well for damage, and that's a combo. What exactly you can do during the grapple I will show you after showing the other 2 tactics. So the other tactics would be stacking up your Titan stance. So before you start the boss you need to get into Titan stance, and then you will stun the boss with Titan stance Z. So use this skill, since it's a dash, you combo it with your tap. Because while you use tap here, if you use a skill dash, it will apply the stun at melee range. Meaning that once you get into Titan stance, you will have your Z ready and you tap, so you press tap into Z to immediately dash at the boss with a stun. The last tactic of the 3 is gonna be with fire. I'm gonna show you in a bit. I saw some people use it at Power Run, but it's usually not recommended. So use your tap to get into Titan stance and use tap into Z. So tap into Z for an instant stun to grapple. And it usually takes quite some time to pre-stack. That's also why I like to use the other combo. But technically this works. You just need to any cancel the tap into Z dash. Because if you use tap and delay the Z dash a little bit, it won't apply at the boss and the boss won't get double stunned. So that's an issue you might run into. So if you fail the any cancel in any way, for some reason, you will fail the stun. So you might want to reset or just go with it. It doesn't really matter that much, but that's a common issue. And usually with someone who uses Soul Burn or Astro Buff, that might lag your game a little bit and make you fail the any cancel. So use tap again for Titan stance, use tap into Z, and instantly apply it. Last tactic would be with fire, which is really not recommended because you spec this flurry to broken ground. And this is PvP spec, you lose iframes, and here you lose your entire damage combo. So this Quake is basically a daze AoE, which dazes the boss at a certain point. So you can technically stay at 12 meters and then count down for a bit. 1, 2, 3, and stun. And then you can grab again. Disabled my grab here and fire. But there you really need to look at your meters and count down properly. 1, 2, 3. It's really not that nice to pull off. Only so people use it at power run when a fight is really less than 8 seconds. But you need to keep in mind KFM burst grapple is 8 seconds long. The initial grab is 6 seconds long, and you can extend it with your 2 this skill, which we will be using. Also, by the way, this is the normal command spec a lot of Wolf KFMs nowadays use for more Titan stance, but this also works. But if you use this, then you can't pre-stack with Titan stance. You can, however, pre-stack, then switch back, go into Titan stance and start a fight like that. That also works. So usually when I go in, do my combo, and this is how it's gonna look like. The total for nearly 10 seconds CC. What's important to note is I usually go into the boss and I wait this over the stun and try and grab last second, because every single stun duration is debuff damage for people, and our debuff damage is nowadays really high. So you basically double the damage for any second you delay you grab as well. So that's really useful as well. Top of that, as said already, I engage with my stun. I apply my 4, use my 2F and then in X, so I can pull it off. So I go in. And as you can see already, my Dawning Spark and Chrono Strike, Wasted and Badge do quite a lot of damage. So, what's also important to note is what exactly do you do during the stun? During the grapple. So you grapple, got your tab, 1, 2, 3, 4 and LMB. So 4 you basically never want to use. The 3 also you never really want to use, since it's laying in target unconscious. So what do you want to use? Is your tab first of all. Usually, this your tab, the Klopper. It adds around 2 to 4% breaker, which is pretty nice to a boss. Though be cautious with it. I sometimes use it twice, in case I needed to get an additional little bit of breaker more. So I use it right at the start. I use my LMB a few times, and then I extend with a Klopper again. You lose a little bit of damage, like half a second, so it's not too much of a big deal, but sometimes you might need this. At the same time, when the boss is already at 95% breaker, your grab will usually add 4% to it. So if a boss is already at this amount of breaker, plus 4% will put it to 99%. So you really gotta be careful if you want to add an additional bit of breaker and extend the boss grapple with a breaker to break the boss, or you intentionally don't use it, so you can use your wolf afterwards to break it, which is usually recommended, but some teams want you to instantly break. You gotta really look after that as well. So I usually use my grab start, I grab, I use my tab, or I use something else, and then I use my LMB, extend with my 2. My 2 is the longest extend, 2.8 seconds. So I usually always use my LMB to do damage during the grab, and recently I'm using this skill as well to taunt the boss. It's really useful, because in the second you get off a boss, usually someone else out-aggroed you by 4 already, and you're just gonna sit there. By the time you press 1 LMB to apply your aggro, the boss is already gonna range check someone if he didn't phase or die already. So I usually go in nowadays with a double stun. I press my 1. I want to apply the taunt, and then I use the LMB and extend it at the end with my 2. So I grapple, 1 LMB damage, and then I use my 2 extend. Technically I can also use my 1 at last, but then you lose like 1 second of DPS. I could also use my LMB first, and then my 1, but as you can already see, you get locked for a really long time and you might just accidentally lose your grapple if you fail it. But this is plenty of time. Usually after I grapple, 1 LMB, and then 2 extend. Then I reapply my aggro, use my talisman, and go into wolf like this instantly. You can any cancel your, so I use my talisman, I use my 1 into LMB wolf. So you can any cancel your taunt into wolf. So my taunt is already applied, rather go into wolf immediately, not wasting any DPS. What else is really important to note is how you engage your boss. A lot of bosses will anger you if you go down to less than 10 meters or 9 meters. And usually you have a problem if you engage like this, the boss will instantly aggro you. So you might want to stay from a really far range, at least 11 meters. I usually stay like this. I jump in and I try to land on the boss's back. I usually always try to stay on the side of the boss or the back at the boss, and never start or land at the front of the boss. Since if you start like this, there's a really high chance he might early aggro you, and the CC bar closes and you can't CC your boss anymore. So on a boss like this, I like to stand here, do a stun like this, do my entire combo. If you don't do it, there are a lot of times where a boss just aggroes you mid-air, so you really need to look out for that. Sometimes it can't be helped, there's really nothing you can do, or if someone starts a boss fight too early. But that's pretty much how you start the boss fight. It's practice how easy you can hit the boss. There are bosses like Shrine and Trials where it's pretty easy to hit the boss from behind and instantly start the grapple like that. But then there are bosses like Paw Run or the newest boss Nexus where it's really easy to miss it. It's really a matter of practice. On bosses like Paw Run I recommend really necessarily landing behind her, because the middle height of her is so hard to hit. It's usually more worth it to land behind her and then do the double stun. By that time you might fail the any cancel, she might aggro on you, and that really can't be helped. KFM is one of the harder classes where you can do the double CC, because this aggro thing really cannot be helped. There's nothing you can do about it. So one last combo again, I start the boss, go in, double stun, proc my badge, wait for the stun duration, apply my aggro, extend it, use my talisman, apply aggro again and instantly go into and simple as that. You should really look into how much your breaker does. Most bosses your breaker does around 40%. So some bosses you might instantly break the boss after you go into wolf after the grab. Or you might just accidentally break the boss during the second grab or something. So you gotta look out for that. It's a matter of every group of practice. I hope this guide helped you out. And if there are any questions you can comment them. As I said, it's mostly practice. How you jump in, if you hit this middle height, where you can double CC, or you just fail it. Failing any cancel can happen to everyone, and that's pretty normal. So good luck everyone, and have fun practicing.